How's it going, guys? Today I'm going to be explaining one of, if not the most common problems with the GD3 fits. So that is going to be the topic of water leakage. And so basically what's going to happen is if you ever come around to either your passenger or driver side, doesn't really matter which, and you notice that your floorboards are absolutely soaked. Now obviously I have WeatherTech mats, but under here a couple days ago, maybe a week or two ago, there was so much water here that when you would press down with your hand, water would come gushing up. And what causes that is right up here at the top of the hatch where this side panel meets the roof panel, the factory sealant basically just dissolves over time, and it'll basically just be bare metal here. And what a lot of, probably 99% of GD3 fits ever made have to deal with is you have to reseal up here by the hatch, or it's going to start leaking water down into your trunk. And another thing is when I found that water, I looked in my trunk and I had probably about an inch or two deep of water in my spare tire compartment. You can see it's still kind of damp because I didn't get quite all the water with my shop vac, but you know, it is what it is. So basically what happens is the water leaks in through these top two corners and it seeps all the way down on the inside. Obviously on the inside of your car, seeps all the way down, and it'll pool in the trunk area. And then when you drive, you'll hear like a sloshing sound, which is actually how I discovered it. I heard water sloshing around and I was like, what on God's green earth is that? So I thought I left something in my trunk, and I was like, well, there's nothing in my trunk. So I look in my back seat and I was like, why on God's green earth is my floor sopping wet? And then I think I actually saw another video. It was like some Australian guy told me, or said how he checked in his trunk compartment. And I was like, well, I don't think my trunk is wet, but I guess I'll look in there. And sure as shit, that's what it was. So like I said, what you're going to do, or what you're going to want to do, is take some auto glass sealer and just cake it on. You could probably do a cleaner job than I did, but it is what it is. And what a lot of people will do is they take off these two bolts for your trunk strut, and they will put sealant around this bracket and then put the bolts back on. Another common spot I've seen is right here in the tail lights. Now mine, I didn't have any water leakage from my tail lights, so I don't, I guess that's subjective. But another guy I saw, he took all this plastic out for the trunk, and there's actually a spot right here. There's another seam on the inside of the bodywork where water can leak too. And all you have to do is there's a screw here, there's another screw right there, and then it's the same on both sides. And then all this plastic is just held in with clips. And then right here on the bottom, obviously you have more clips. And assuming you can get all those out without breaking them, then you can reseal the inside too. But my main issue, and what I just did a couple minutes ago, was up here in the weather stripping. I don't want to take it out because the sealant is still wet. I don't want to get it all over my hands. But basically, if you slide this weather stripping forward and pull it up at the same time, so you kind of go up at an angle like this, this weather stripping just comes clean out. It's not held down with glue or anything, which is super convenient. And what I noticed is right here where it clips in, I had a huge chunk of, oh, you've got to be kidding me. But I had a huge chunk of my bodywork that was just completely gone. And that's where the water was coming in, which is why my passenger side was so much more saturated than my driver's side, because water was coming down here. And if I had to guess, probably going either down that way or down somewhere in a track like that, and just completely soaking my passenger side. And I have gotten all the water out. It hasn't rained in like a week, but my floorboards are still damp from how much freaking water was in there. Now, like I said, all you're going to want to do is get some auto glass. As long as it's a polyurethane, it really doesn't matter what it is. This was like $13 on Amazon, but just any polyurethane adhesive will work. And then you're just going to lather it up. Definitely these two corners on either side. I've seen some people have issues right here where this hinge is. Mine, obviously, you can tell this is what it's supposed to look like. And that's what this was supposed to look like, before I put all this goop on there. But like I said, it's not really a matter of if, it's going to happen to your GD3. It's pretty much when. I thought mine was totally fine, and it was up until about a month ago. We had a ton of rain. It rained for like 4 days straight, which is why there was like an inch or two of water in my trunk. But if you hear a sloshing sound when you drive, then check your trunk, because I guarantee there's probably a bunch of water in your trunk. But like I said, you don't have to get fancy with it. I literally just slathered this on here because there was such a huge area where the sealant was gone. I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, I just threw it on there basically because it was such a wide area. And also check underneath this weather stripping. Like I said, you just push it forward and pull it up at the same time, and it comes right out. It's just held in with like a peg and a clip. So basically just examine the whole rear area of your trunk, and when you put this on, it helps a little bit to pull your weather stripping back, because this comes off super easily. So just pull your weather stripping back along the top, and then when you're done, obviously make sure it's pressed in. But again, as long as really any silicone based sealant will work. But if this was helpful and you guys had a water seepage issue, let me know. If you know of some other areas that I didn't mention where it's also leaking water, I would love to know, because I will need to fix it on mine eventually too. This is just what I've found so far. But yeah.